morning, everyone. We're going to get started. I want to thank you all for being here. So I'm just going to get right to it. Last month, we stood in this room before the community following an encounter between Erie police officers and Mr. Keven Sparks that raised serious concerns and difficult questions throughout our city. At that time, we committed to conducting a thorough investigation, completing the personnel process that was required of us, and returning publicly to share what we found and what we're doing about it. That process is now complete. I know and I recognize that it took longer than many people had hoped. And I know that when trust is already being tested, waiting for answers like this can deepen frustration and suspicion. But that's why we're here today, to provide as full an accounting as we responsibly and legally can of what this investigation found, what it did not find, what actions have been taken, and what changes are already resulting from it. Before Chief Laura and Deputy Chief Janice go into more detail, I want to say this again. Mr. Sparks is not simply the subject of an investigation. He is a member of this community, and his dignity matters. The dignity of our officers matters too. And the people of Erie deserve confidence that both will be treated fairly throughout this process. When the actions of government raise concern, particularly when they involve the extraordinary authority that we entrust to law enforcement, the public has a right to ask what happened, to expect those concerns to be taken seriously, and to understand how our conclusions were reached. Before we begin today, I do want to set one expectation. Today's presentation is going to be longer than what many of you may have expected, because we believe these conversations deserve more than just a summary of our conclusions. One of the questions that we've truly wrestled with throughout this process is what transparency should actually look like in a situation like this. And I have to be honest with you, we don't claim to have it all figured out. But we have come to believe that whenever possible, transparency should do more than just communicate conclusions. It should help all of us better understand the systems, responsibilities, constraints, and opportunities that shape moments like this one. So today, we're going to take the time to walk through not only what we found, but how we approach this investigation, where decisions were made, and what we've learned along the way. Our hope is that this doesn't just answer questions about one incident, but helps all of us have a more informed conversation about policing, accountability, and the work of serving our community. Now, there will still be information that we cannot disclose legally, particularly as it relates to individual personnel matters. I understand that some people might leave watching this today wanting information beyond what we are legally able to provide. But let me say this. Where the law gives us a choice between simply asking you to trust our conclusion and showing you how we reached it, our intention is to show you. Transparency does not mean that government can literally disclose everything in every investigation. It also does not mean that an investigation should begin with predetermined conclusions or be judged solely by whether it confirms our initial assumptions. Transparency means showing our work. It means explaining what evidence was reviewed, what standards were applied, what concerns were substantiated, what concerns were not, and what actions resulted. My hope is that even those who ultimately disagree with our conclusion today will leave understanding how we reach those conclusions. I'll now turn it over to Chief Laura, who will provide an overview of the investigation and its findings, followed by Deputy Chief Janice, who will go into more detail on the investigation and share the body and dash cam video and other evidence supporting these conclusions. Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. When I first saw the video involving Mr. Keven Sparks on June 28th, I had questions about what I was seeing. I understood why people were watching that video had questions as well. I immediately contacted Mayor Devlin and directed Deputy Chief Janice to begin a formal investigation. Two questions were of particular interest to me. First, did the officers continue using force after Mr. Sparks had been brought under control and handcuffed? Second, did the officer operating the police cruiser accelerate towards or intentionally strike Mr. Sparks? I wanted clear answers to those questions based on all of the evidence available to us, not assumptions about what our officers did or did not do. I've spent my career in law enforcement, and I take that very seriously. the authority and responsibility that come with this work, we ask police officers to step into difficult and sometimes dangerous situations and make decisions that can have real consequences for the people involved. The public should expect those decisions to be held to a higher standard. Our officers should also expect that when their actions are questioned, they will receive fair review based on complete evidence and standards that govern their work. Both are important to a police department that wants to do its job well. That is why I asked our investigation to do what they did. Their investigation was extensive. It included police reports, interviews, radio transmissions, body-worn and vehicle camera footage, video from other sources, vehicle and taser data, medical and incarceration records, and the departmental policies governing the actions involved. You will see much of that evidence that informed the investigation today. Our responsibility was to examine what happened from every available angle and provide answers based on what the full investigation established. The investigation ultimately found that the allegations of excessive force and the intentional use of a police vehicle to strike Mr. Sparks were not supported by the complete evidence. It also found deficiencies and multiple violations of other departmental policies. Those findings resulted in significant personnel action, including the immediate demotion of one of the officers and a change to our body-worn camera policy. I want to be equally clear about both. An investigation should not begin with the goal of clearing an officer or disciplining an officer. Its purpose is to establish what happened, to compare those facts to the law and our policies, and act on what the evidence shows. When an officer's actions are consistent with policy, I have a responsibility to say that. When they are not, I have a responsibility to address it. And when an incident shows us something we can improve in our policies, training, supervision, or practices, we need to make those improvements. I am proud to lead the Erie Police Department. I see every day the difficult situations our officers are called into, and the care, judgment, and professionalism they bring to this work. Being proud of this department does not mean believing we always get everything right. I want us to be a department that is willing to look honestly at our own work. Stand behind our officers when their actions are supported by the evidence, address problems when they are not, and keep getting better on how we serve the people of Erie. We have an enormous responsibility to the people of Erie. People call on us on some of the worst days of their lives. They encounter our officers in moments that can be frightening, painful, confusing, or even dangerous. How we handle those moments affects not only the people directly involved, but how people across this city view and trust their police department. I care deeply about this relationship. I know trust cannot simply be expected because we wear this uniform, or because I stand here as chief and I tell you that an investigation was thorough. People should be able to understand what we did and why. That is why I joined Mayor Devlin in her commitment to be as transparent about this incident as we responsibly and legally can be. Rather than simply announcing our conclusions today, we're going to show you much of the evidence behind them. We're going to explain what the investigation found, including where officers acted within policy and where we identified failures. And we are going to explain what we've done in response to that. Deputy Chief Janis led the investigation. I asked him to answer those two questions I outlined at the beginning, and his review also examined the broader circumstances and conduct surrounding this incident. He will now walk you through how he conducted that investigation, what the evidence showed, and how he reached those findings. Thank you, Deputy Chief.
Thank you, Chief Lohr and Mayor Devlin. As Chief Lohr explained, I was directed to conduct a complete investigation into the June 28th encounter involving Keven Sparks. Two questions of immediate concern were, first, did an officer accelerate towards or intentionally strike Mr. Sparks with a police vehicle? And second, did officers continue using force after Mr. Sparks had been brought under control and handcuffed? The investigation also examined the broader circumstances surrounding the encounter, including the attempted arrest, vehicle pursuit, collision, taser deployment, physical arrest, reporting of the incident, camera use, and compliance with relevant Erie Police Department policies. To do that, I reviewed the daily details for the shift, the June 28th arrest report, interviews with officers and witnesses, radio transmissions, police reports, memorandums, videos from multiple sources, all available body-worn and fleet vehicle footage, camera footage from within the Erie Police Department, vehicle and taser data, medical records from UPMC Hammett, Erie County prison records, and relevant sections of the Erie Police Department's Policy and Procedure Manual. I also consulted our Traffic Investigation Unit, Field Training, and Training Units. I want to walk through the evidence as that's most significant to the findings. Before I do that, I'd like to give a little bit of background before June 28th. 8 days before this incident, on June 20th, Erie Police Officer Number 1 saw Keven Sparks driving a vehicle in the 200 block of East 24th Street. Officer 1 knew Mr. Sparks and believed that he had an active arrest warrant. The officer attempted to follow the vehicle and conduct a traffic stop. After observing the vehicle increase its speed and drive through a red light at East 26 and German Streets, the officer activated his emergency lights. When the officer determined the vehicle was too far ahead to safely initiate a traffic stop, he discontinued his attempt. After returning to the station, the officer checked Mr. Sparks and confirmed he had multiple outstanding arrest warrants. That information is relevant to the June 28th encounter because the officer at the time knew there were active warrants for Mr. Sparks. Taking us to June 28th. At approximately 11:03 a.m. on June 28th, Officer 1 saw Mr. Sparks in the area of East 24th Street, this time riding an e-bike. The officer attempted to stop him and take him into custody on the outstanding arrest warrants. The officers initiated his emergency lights and ordered Mr. Sparks to come over to him. Mr. Sparks ignored the officer and continued around him and his cruiser and fled on the e-bike. The officer returned to his cruiser and began following him and requested assistance. During the pursuit, which lasted approximately 1 minute and 5 seconds, Mr. Sparks traveled between the roadway and the sidewalk and through both lanes of traffic. A second officer approached from the opposite direction in the 2300 block of Wallace. As Mr. Sparks moved onto the sidewalk, Officer 2 positioned his cruiser in an attempt to block his path. At approximately 11:04 and 23 seconds, contact occurred between Mr. Sparks and the police cruiser. Sparks fell to the ground, immediately got back up, and continued to flee on foot. Both officers then pursued him. This brings us to the first significant question that I wanted to address with the evidence today. What happened between the Erie Police Department cruiser and Mr. Sparks' e-bike? The first video we're going to show is from Officer 1's dash cam. It shows the initial attempt to stop Mr. Sparks, the subsequent pursuit. We've highlighted vehicle data, speed, braking, and activation of emergency equipment, which will be up here on the corner of the screen. Be aware that approximately the first 30 seconds contain no audio because of our camera system's buffering system. As the video plays on, you'll see Officer 1 attempt to stop Mr. Sparks, activate his emergency lights and sirens. He will then follow him. Officer 1 communicated his direction of travel and named Keven Sparks as the person he was pursuing. You will see Mr. Sparks' path of travel and the officer's speed and braking information recorded by the police vehicle. Mr. Sparks can be seen pedaling and looking back at the officer as he flees. This will be the first video. The B will indicate the braking, and the L will show that the emergency lighting is activated. we'll stop the video there. As I continue, I'd just like to advise that some of the video that we will be looking at here may not be appropriate for all audiences. The next video is from Officer 2's dash cam. Officer 2 approached on Wallace Street with his emergency lights and sirens activated. Mr. Sparks approaches on the e-bike and moves onto the sidewalk. Officer 2 positions his cruiser in Mr. Sparks' path in an attempt to stop him. The vehicle data highlighted on the video shows Officer 2 braking as they approach one another. Mr. Sparks turns left and then continues to pedal as he enters the path of the stopping police car. Mr. Sparks does not appear to try to brake at any time. Mr. Sparks enters the path of the police car, and the officer slams on the brakes to stop when the collision occurs. This will be the second video. I will show that video again. It'll be the same sequence, however, this time it'll be in slow motion. Finally, the next video will be the original video that circulated publicly following the incident, also shown in slow motion. As a reference line has been added to assist in evaluating the path of the police cruiser. The officer did not change his trajectory, nor did he turn his wheels to intentionally try to strike Mr. Sparks. Standard in all investigations, I examine these videos together rather than relying on any single piece of evidence. I also reviewed all of the vehicle data. That evidence showed that Officer 2 was braking as he attempted to position his cruiser in Mr. Sparks' path. Based on the video and the vehicle data, the investigation did not find evidence that Officer 2 accelerated towards Mr. Sparks or intentionally used the police cruiser to strike him. That answered one of the two questions Chief Laura asked me to investigate. As we know, after the collision, Mr. Sparks got up and continued fleeing on foot. Officer 2 pursued him and deployed his department-issued Taser 10. I want to be precise about the evidence that I want to show here. The Taser 10, which the Erie Police Department carries, releases one cartridge with each deployment. At least 2 cartridges must establish a connection for the Taser to produce neuromuscular incapacitation, or NMI. MNI causes the loss of sufficient voluntary muscle control for 5 seconds. Here, Officer 2 deployed 2 cartridges, as highlighted there as 1 and 2. Only one of the cartridges made contact with Mr. Sparks. Here we can see that the duration of the energies was just over 5 seconds. However, the current between the 2 connected cartridges was 0. That meant that the required electrical connection was not established and neuromuscular incapacitation did not occur, or basically that the Taser was ineffective. The second major question Chief Laura asked me to investigate was whether officers continued using force after Mr. Sparks had been brought under control and handcuffed. The body-worn camera footage provided the clearest evidence for answering that question. This video begins with Mr. Sparks on the ground and both officers approaching him. The officers repeatedly instruct Mr. Sparks to place his hands behind his back. The video shows the officers attempting to gain control of his arms while Mr. Sparks pulls his arms towards his body. Mr. Sparks can be seen activating his arm muscles and making fists, showing that he is resisting. Officer 1 issues 3 compliance strikes to Mr. Sparks to the left abdomen area. Officer 2 also issues 3 compliance strikes to Mr. Sparks, 1 in the left shoulder and twice to the side of the head. Under Erie Police Department policy, an officer may use physical contact to gain a person's compliance or control during an encounter. Once he is compliant, the use of force must stop. The officers gained control of Mr. Sparks' arms and placed him in handcuffs. Officers 2 can be seen kneeling on the shoulder of Mr. Sparks to maintain control. At no time did any officer kneel on Mr. Sparks' neck. The portion of the body camera footage showing the physical effort to gain control of and handcuff Mr. Sparks lasts only 16 seconds. I will show that video first at normal speed. We will now show the same portion in slow motion, so the sequence including Mr. Sparks' movements, the officer's actions, the strikes, and the point in which force ended can be viewed more closely. Based on this footage, the investigation did not find evidence that officers continued striking or otherwise used force against Mr. Sparks after he had been restrained and handcuffed. The Erie Police Department's use of force policy requires officers to use only the amount and duration of force that is objectively reasonable and necessary given the facts and circumstances perceived by officers at the time. The investigation evaluated the taser deployment and the physical strikes against that standard. Based on the totality of the evidence reviewed, the investigation concluded that the force used to take Mr. Sparks into custody was within Erie Police Department's use of force policy. The investigation, therefore, did not substantiate the allegations of excessive force. Following the arrest, Mr. Sparks was transported to UPMC Hammett for medical evaluation, where he underwent testing and scans. He was subsequently medically cleared and transported to the Erie County Prison. The investigation did not end with those 2 questions. As I mentioned at the beginning, I also reviewed the broader conduct surrounding the incident for compliance with Erie Police Department policies both during and after the incident. That review identified deficiencies and multiple violations of department policy. Those findings were referred through the city's personnel process and resulted in immediate demotion of one of the officers. The investigation also identified an issue involving policy 3.27 governing our body-worn and fleet cameras. At the time of this incident, the department policy permitted officers to place their body cameras in sleep mode under limited circumstances involving personal privacy. During this incident, one of the officers improperly utilized that provision, resulting in the absence of body-worn camera footage during a critical portion of the encounter. As a result of that finding, the policy has been changed. The sleep mode function has been disabled, and body-worn cameras are now required to remain in operational they're to remain operational during the officers' shifts in accordance with the revised policy. To summarize the findings of my investigation, the evidence did not establish that Officer 2 intentionally struck Mr. Sparks with the police cruiser. The evidence did not establish that officers continued using force after Mr. Sparks was brought under control and handcuffed. The investigation concluded that the use of force used to take Mr. Sparks into custody was within Erie Police Department policy. And the investigation identified separate violations of department policy that resulted in personnel action and a change department policy. Those conclusions were reached by reviewing the complete body of evidence and applying the relevant department policies to the conduct documented in the evidence. That concludes my presentation, and I will now turn it back over to the mayor.
I want to thank Chief Laura and Deputy Chief Janice. And before I go into my closing remarks, I really want to say how grateful that I, as mayor, that my administration, and that I think we as a community should be to the leadership of Chief Laura and to the incredible and detailed and thorough work done by Deputy Chief Janice throughout this process. As I think you've seen today, many, many hours of time and effort have been put into a thorough review, and I want to thank both of them for the incredible amount of work that they've done. With that, I want to close by returning why we chose to come back to the community this way today. When an incident like this creates so much concern, particularly around the use of police authority, we as government have a responsibility to do more than simply announce our conclusion. We need to show people the evidence that we can share, explain how we evaluated it, acknowledge where failures occurred, and explain what happens next, all of which we have done today. Today you've heard that the investigation did not substantiate the allegation that officers intentionally struck Mr. Sparks with a police vehicle. You have heard that the investigation concluded that the force used to take him into custody was within the Erie Police Department's use of force policy. You have also heard that the investigation identified other deficiencies and procedural violations, that those findings resulted in significant personnel action, including the demotion of an officer, and that the department has already changed its body-worn camera policy as a result. These findings matter together. Some people, we know, will disagree with the conclusions that you've heard. Some will still have questions, and some members of our community will continue to carry concerns about law enforcement that are much larger and much older than this incident. Our job is not to demand trust just because we held a press conference today. Our job is to continue earning trust by what we do next. Last month, when we came to you with the initial findings, we made several commitments about our work, including making our use of force policy easier for our residents to understand. We are developing a plain language community guide that will explain when officers may use force, what de-escalation means, what officers are prohibited from doing, and how force is reported and reviewed. We are committed to making information about police training and policy more accessible to the public. And we committed last month to improving how the city communicates following significant police incidents and creating clearer opportunities for community education and input around policing and accountability. We remain committed to these things. This investigation has already resulted in an immediate policy change, and we will continue reviewing the policies, training, supervisory practices, and systems implicated by this incident to determine what else we need to learn and improve. I know that we still have work ahead. There are people in this community whose trust in law enforcement, or honestly in all of city government, has been damaged, not only by this incident, but by experiences that long predate it. One investigation will not repair that. One policy change will not repair that. And one press conference certainly will not repair that. Trust is built through repeated experience. It is built when people see that government tells the truth, even when the truth is complicated. It is built when we acknowledge mistakes rather than hide them. It is built when we distinguish between allegations that are supported and those that are not, rather than choosing whichever story is most convenient. It is built when we treat the people whose conduct we investigate and the people affected by that conduct as human beings who deserve dignity and fairness. And it is built when we take what we learn to become better. That is the work that we are committed to continuing. Today is certainly not the end of that. It is one step in it. I want to thank Chief Laura and Deputy Chief Janice again. I want to thank our command staff for their role in the work that we've done. This concludes our press conference and remarks, and I'll now open it up to questions. Mr. Flowers?
You talked about the nuts and bolts of the investigation. You said that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the discipline or the demotion was related to broader conduct of one of the officers involved in terms of violating department policy. Can you explain to us what this broader conduct was? And did it occur at the scene or later?
So obviously we do have personnel issues, so we have to be very cognizant of what we say.
Understand that.
So
It's
I
just
will,
kinda vague on if you're gonna demote somebody, what was the conduct that led to the demotion?
it was, well, it was not anything to do with the use of force. It was the body camera and other subsequent policy violations in the handling of it after the incident.
Okay, so the demotion had to do with the sleep mode issue that you talked about?
Yes.
All right, was he the only, or was this the only officer who put their camera in that mode?
No, it's, the purpose
For
of
this
sleep.
incident,
Yes,
yes.
for this incident, but the
Okay.
purpose of sleep
At the
mode,
scene.
yes.
Correct.
Yeah, but it's used frequently with officers, but we have now deactivated that feature.
And is there a reason that you're not identifying the officer who's demoted or any other officer in front of the investigation? Publicly identifying them?
Yeah.
We are still governed by personnel matters, and it is not our practice in a case like this. We have never released the names of officers. That's not to say that it's not already out in the public. We understand that, but it is not our practice in an incident like this to release the names. That's why we have referred to them as Officer 1 and Officer 2.
Kind of going off what Kevin asked you, one of the officers that was demoted, was it one of the officers that was involved in this incident?
Yes.
So, yeah, okay,
Yes.
gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
I would prefer not to. I think that we have shown the body cam footage. It's clear who is on body cam footage. We've talked about why the demotion occurred. We're just going to leave it at that. One officer was demoted. So
The motion is already been completed. He was a patrolman. His duties are that of a patrolman.
So he's lost rank, and then there is a pay change associated with that.
And the overall message you want to send to anybody who might be upset with the outcome of this investigation?
Look, we understand, and I want to say this too, didn't include it in my formal remarks. We met with the Sparks family yesterday. We also brought them in this morning, and they had an opportunity to view the footage before the public. We felt that was fair, and we had made that promise to them. We understand that this is difficult, and to be honest, I think any of us who watch this video are troubled. We see this, it's painful to watch. It's painful for me as mayor to watch. I think it's painful for the family, I think the community, and I think even for our leadership here. That notwithstanding, we have to do what's right. We have to protect and investigate everything that we can, and I feel that we have done that. I want to send the message that we've been transparent. I also want to say this is a shift in policy, to bring the media in, to show full footage, to be as transparent as we've been. We believe this is a shift. This is going to be our practice. We also want to acknowledge this is the first for me as mayor, for Chief Laura as chief. So we will review how we handled this incident and take feedback and use it to determine how we handle incidents moving forward. But I stand behind the decisions that have been made today. Yes.
Can you say that Sparks received adequate medical care while in county prison as well?
So we don't have jurisdiction over the Erie County Prison, as you know. So what we can say is that when he was in our custody, he was taken to UPMC Hammett, as you heard today, and fully cleared. He was then accepted at the Erie County Prison, which is their responsibility, At that point, I cannot speak to his treatment, and I would refer you to the warden and the county executive. Other questions? Okay. We thank all of you for coming today. Thank you for sitting through and reviewing this with all of us. Thanks very much. Have a good day.